Welcome back to another episode of Have You Heard? Today, I am joined with Zoe.
Hello.
And I am Jack. We're both the co-founders here at The Social Shepherd. And I guess we've been in this business now for almost 5 years, coming up to in September.
Big B-Day.
Big birthday. Exciting times. I don't know what we're doing for it yet.
I don't know if the celebration is going to be that big. We've had quite a big year from a cost perspective. So
we got to plan it.
When it comes to parties, I'm the tight budget person, and you're like, we'll do everything.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. And obviously, when we first started it, you were 23.
Yeah.
I was 25. Well, I'm not in my 20s anymore, but you're still in your 20s. And I think, obviously, with where we've started and where we've come, has come with sometimes moments of what is called as imposter syndrome, and am I the right person to be here? Do I deserve this type of thing? What's your how have you seen that journey through of imposter syndrome, and how's that been for you?
Well, firstly, I think imposter syndrome, you feel it whenever you land. Well, there's lots of reasons why people feel it, but I guess from our perspective, we've both landed in roles that we're underqualified for, which, that's just the nature of what's kind of happened. But I guess anyone that owns a business and kind of starts something will end up in a role of that nature, because to become an MD of someone else's company, or a company that's owned by a PLC or anything of that nature, privately, publicly, whatever it is, you would need to have a significant amount of experience to be able to do that. And so would be rare for people to be in a role of that nature at either of our ages or with our experience at that point. That's not to say that it doesn't happen. There are exceptions,
sure,
and people that have done that. So I think there definitely has been moments of imposter syndrome and do I know enough? Do I understand that? And I think one thing that's been really helpful from our perspective is that from a craft point of view, because we did everything at the start and the business has been built off of the skills and the work that we did at the start. And obviously we've bolstered people in that are better at those points than us, but I feel really confident in my craft. Where the imposter syndrome comes in is the points that we're learning as we grow. So it's leadership, it's managing people. We are really blessed now to have some really senior team members who are significantly older than me. And it's kind of learning how to manage and learning how to adapt your approach. And I guess imposter syndrome can set up in those kind of phrases.
I think, though, to that point, it happens and that's why it probably happens for everyone. Everyone gets it at some level, because no one's...
It's just self-doubt ultimately, though. And everyone's going to doubt themselves at points.
To grow, you're always going to be underqualified. If you're entering a new role or leveling up within your existing role, you are at that big, the start of it, underqualified, effectively. You just got joined, just started it. So.
Yeah, and I think actually if you flip it, imposter syndrome has a negative connotation attached to it. And I understand that, it can come with feelings of anxiety and self-doubt and stuff like that. But actually, if you break it down, it's a positive thing, because you're putting yourself in a position where you're going to grow. And even if you fail in your attempt to grow, you're still learning from that.
Yeah.
So I always say, and my mum used to always say, whenever I was doing dance competitions, whenever I was little, when you're nervous, it means you're about to do something great. And I think you can tie that into imposter syndrome as well. And that's not to say that, every time that I have a moment of self-doubt or I'm having a bad day, I don't sit there and go, it's okay, Zoe. It's fine. You have your moments where you're in your feels, and that's, everyone has that. But if you look at the bigger picture, it's actually a really positive thing, because you're growing, you're learning, and you can't get to where you want to be without doing that.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, how do you combat it? But I guess you just said, sometimes it is a case of just,
Well, I think you have to just rally through with it, if that makes sense. Sometimes, if you're having a bad day or you're having a moment of self-doubt, you've got to walk into every room, and particularly when you're a leader, you've got to walk into every room no matter how you're feeling, and try and spark creativity and make sure that you're trying to like get the best out of people. So I think sometimes you do just have to kind of go, okay, I'm going to park the way I'm feeling here, and I'm just going to go forward and get the job done in the best possible way that I can. And I understand that that can be like more difficult for some people than others. But I think just like building up that like emotional and like mental resilience, and that comes with time and experience as well, is really, really important.
Yeah, don't expect that you can conquer the world from day one. It comes with that time. But I guess for like someone that is in their like early 20s, or if you look back at yourself in those early stages, going to those meetings, which you're like, I don't know if I should be here and whatnot. What advice?
So this is really bad, but I think, well, it's not bad. It was a good thing, but I slowly learned, and I think this is because of the space that we work in, that any of the rooms that and I say this to our team all the time, like we will know more about social than 99% of the people that sit in the rooms that we speak with, because we're specialists, because that's what we do.
Yeah.
It's what we live, it's what we breathe, that's our job. So sometimes, you know, you could be walking into a room with someone really senior, but quite often they, for us, might be like a general marketeer, if that makes sense, or they might be an owner of a business, and they're coming to you because you have the answers that they don't have. And it's just backing yourself and like making sure that, you know, you know your craft. And I think because we know our craft, it's fine. Like, you could ask me a question about social and I would feel comfortable answering it. And if I couldn't answer it, I would know where to be able to find the information, either within the business or through research. I think the one thing that will not aid you in those scenarios is trying to pretend like you know what you're saying when you actually don't understand. And you can spot it a mile off. Like, if someone is presenting something and they don't understand the data in front of them, or they don't understand like the ins and outs of what they're actually doing. Like, if you're trying to speak about an algorithm, but you actually haven't researched or made an effort to understand what an algorithm actually is and how it works, you're not going to be able to answer the questions that come off the back of your statement. You're going to end up waffling. And I have a phrase, if you can't make a point in 2 sentences, it's not a point worth making. So you need to know your craft when you're walking into those businesses. And there is an element of like fake it till you make it, but I would apply that to more so like your confidence and your softer skills rather than your craft. Like, know your craft.
Yeah. And then, you know, you've backed yourself, you've learned everything you possibly could, you've given it your all as well, in those circumstances. So you can go in with like a clear
conscience. Like, I always think, like, if you've done everything that you can to learn to understand, like, if you've given something your best stab at it, then you can't even be annoyed at yourself if you fail, because you've done everything that you could possibly do. Whereas, like, there's nothing worse than like walking away from something and being like, I could have done this, or I could have done this. And you will naturally do that. But I think in most situations, I always try to say, like, okay, I've done everything that I could have done to make that work. And I think if you can do that, then you're going to be kinder to yourself overall. But yeah, I think, you know, talking about stuff like imposter syndrome and sort of work and like how you get around that and things, everyone is going to be different and everyone's going to have different sort of ways of handling it. And I think the imposter syndrome that you or I will have like sort of focused on will be different to what some people may feel in like jobs and stuff like that. And I think knowing your craft and then just working on your own personal confidence and like being, you know, it's like little things. Like, I think some of our like more junior team members, like, I always emphasize this, is like just being really confident in like your softer skills of having a confident handshake when you walk in the room, and like being able to be like, no matter what's gone in the day, I can walk into a room and I can turn it on and I can speak with confidence, and I'm not gonna, and that comes with time, and that's not something that everyone can do, but practice it. I probably couldn't recommend that enough.
And my thoughts are just, everyone's going through it as well. Everyone's been through it. Everyone feels out their depth at some point. So you don't have to fret about it too much, because you're not the only one that's a part of that. So
yeah, I mean, I think good things come out of going outside of your comfort zone, and if you have imposter syndrome, it means that you're doing that. And I think it's just down to you to manage like the physical and the mental symptoms of that, and make sure that, you know, if you are suffering from anything that's associated with it, that you're managing that proactively and like you're not ignoring that. I think that's really, really important. But yeah, a keen balance of knowing yourself and accepting that everyone goes through this is really important too.
Well, thank you very much for sharing those last 5 years of experience. But I guess even before starting the business, you know,
even before then, I would have gone through points of like imposter
no matter
syndrome.
where you are in your journey, there's always an element of it. So, but yeah, thank you very much for sharing some of your thoughts on imposter syndrome, even though it's not your favorite terms at all. But we made it happen anyway. But yeah, thank you very much for watching, and we'll be back again very, very soon.